Ladies and gentlemen, we are live today with Ascension Lifestyle Podcast with our special guest, Sheikh. He is the co-founder of the Ottawa Lifestyle Center. It is a holistic wellness center that focuses a lot on personal development, spirituality, fitness, yoga, and martial arts. And Corey is going to be working with us on the Ascension Lifestyle online magazine. We're going to be featuring a lot of his work on there, especially a lot of his videos. And we're just going to get right into it. So how you doing, man?
Good, brother. I'm good. And it's been beautiful to watch you guys with your blogs and the kind of array of different specific topics that I find are what people need at the moment, and that's why I've chosen to sink into doing more videos with you guys and more work like this. But specifically because there's not enough of this information out there, so you guys are killing with that, and I respect that.
Yes, definitely. So tell me a bit about your background. Like, how did you get into what motivated you to open up your lifestyle center, and what made you want to make it distinct from a regular gym? You know, a regular gym, you just go there and you work out, but your lifestyle center, obviously you've implemented a lot of things in there that, most fitness centers don't have, especially when it comes to personal development, spirituality. It's very holistic. So what took you down that path?
Well, ultimately the vision didn't start like that. Really coming out of the fighting lifestyle and fighting competitively for about 6 years, the whole vision was simply just to start a small boot camp teaching Muay Thai kickboxing, a little bit of fitness twist to it out of a squash court in our local university. And then, as that process kind of continued, and as I understood entrepreneurship from a spiritual perspective, realizing that the journey of business and the journey of that type of growth, or that type of opportunity to face your fears and step outside your comfort zone, is ultimately what brought me into a space of my own spiritual awakening. And so all of that kind of process over the past 4 years was what allowed me to sink into a better understanding of exactly what I wanted to do with this center, and what us as a collective team wanted to do with the center. And then the pieces of the vision kind of just started to plug away. We started adding nutrition, started adding meditation, getting into more various lifestyle events like vegan potlucks and community events and tribal meditations and moon meditations, all these different things. That's what started to round it out. But it was only over the past year that we really started to deepen ourselves into the element of guidance, and realizing that our team had a strong ability to guide people through their journey of transformation. And since so many people are going through this process right now, this is where we felt like the direction of the center needed to be taken.
Awesome. And how many of you are involved in this? Because I understand you're the co-founder, and other people have also contributed to this lifestyle center. And what roles do they play in it?
Yeah, so I have, obviously my main soul brother and business partner, Michael Alameo, is the main co-founder, who was one of the original guys back in it. And then my fiance as well, I would view as a co-founder as well, in a sense of, being there at the beginning, being through there in all those troubles of business, and also being my kind of main foundation when things got difficult, and also when the business got difficult. She was able to really, keep that eye on those details, in which Mike and I didn't always have. But then, the rest of the team really started to round out. We got Tiffany, we got Riyad, we got Ben, we got everyone. I'm not going to go into all the names, but we have a team around 10 to 15 on the core team, and then an extended team and family is around 20, 25 of various, trainers, nutritionists, life coaches, meditation experts, and getting into our marketing multimedia team, and everyone else who really makes it happen. It's a strong community, and a lot of even the members are considered, part of that group as well, being our voice out in this city of Ottawa. So it's definitely a core group and a core team that's starting to emerge here. And as we step into the new year, that's only going to get bigger and only going to get more strong.
Cool. Yeah. You mentioned that, there were definitely struggles that you went through when upstarting the business before you were able to get the ball rolling. Many people who start businesses, who want to pursue their dreams, they go through a lot of ups and downs before they can get to a level of, consistent income. And many people even give up on their dreams, their businesses, before they can even get to that level, because there's such a struggle in the beginning. What kind of struggles did you go through specifically, and what kind of mental mind state enabled you to keep going forward, and how has the synergy of your team helped you overcome these struggles?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely you nailed it at the last point. The idea of synergy of team and community, that's really the only thing that kept this going. I mean, there was so many different times in which it got difficult. We had no money. We had to pay rent with credit cards. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. We had a crazy landlord. All these different things. They would have never been possible without having each other. Whether that's just the core group, of the small group that we had it for a majority of the time, going into the rest of the community now. It's all, that's the key element anytime you're trying to do anything. And so even if you're a solo entrepreneur, I mean, that process of having that mastermind group, having those people you can chat with once in a while, that's what's going to really keep you going and keep you motivated. Because other than that, I mean, you're gonna go crazy. And I mean, definitely for me, it was a process of constantly facing my own inner process of change. I mean, I was going through a whole spiritual awakening during this whole process, and that was induced with many other elements and techniques and methods, in which was bringing me down a very deep path on the spiritual front, while I'm still having to face the day-to-day of entrepreneurial life. And so that faced, I mean, there was so many obstacles I faced with that, because I mean, not only are you facing the typical stresses of the material, the entrepreneurial business world, but now you're having to go through and release all of the inner karma and baggage and energetics that comes with a spiritual awakening. So it was definitely kind of more than I asked for, I guess, in the beginning. But really, I realized it was exactly what was needed for me to sink into a place where running a business of holistic means, running a business of conscious nature, you have to be in that space, and you have to have a different mindset than what a typical business guy or woman would have. And that's a key element that was important, and I felt that was way more difficult than what most people may have to go through. But in the long run, and especially in the time we're in on a planetary scale and the changes we're in, that's the most important element, I would say, in business at the moment, is people who are spiritually awake, people who are conscious, and people who are out for the greater good of everyone around them, getting into business, running business, and still in the typical material means of making a living. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, it's a process that forces you to evolve. Either you evolve, or you crumble under your own obstacles. And especially a lot of people who are spiritual and pursuing an entrepreneurial endeavor, I feel, based on the people I've interacted with, whenever they come across challenges in life and in business especially, they are forced to really look deep inside themselves to find the strength, and to look into whatever issues within them are manifesting in their reality, that are causing obstacles for them, unnecessary obstacles for them. And that's definitely something that I see within you. And an important question that I wanted to ask you is, you've mentioned a lot of things that you've overcome and a lot of lessons you've learned, but what would you say is the biggest lesson of your journey of awakening, especially when it comes to with business, personal life, spirituality, everything?
Well, it's most definitely that you're awakening to that in which you already are. And that's such a key component of this entire journey, because ultimately, most people going through the initial awakening process, they start delving into the personal growth, the new age topics, the metaphysics, all the knowledge. And all of this knowledge is bringing them into a space, well, I have to do all of these things. I have to do all the yoga. I have to eat the better diet. I have to think this way. I need to do the law of attraction. I need to start a business. I need to be all these things. But ultimately, the awakening process is bringing you full circle into the space of that in which you already are, in the place in which you already are. And so, yes, it does require healing and release and changing of mindsets and the reprogramming. But ultimately, if you're coming into the space of your own enlightenment, knowing that you already are that, you've always been enlightened, you will always be enlightened, there's no other space but enlightenment. It's simply, how do I sink into that awareness each and every day with my daily spiritual practice, staying consistent on that, and then let everything else unfold from there. You become the watcher, you become the person riding the wave, rather than trying to control the wave or create the wave, or whatever other analogy you want to use. But at least for me, I mean, going from the beginning process, I went into everything, whether it's the different forms of meditation, the psychedelics, getting into the healing techniques, the breathing techniques, the food, the fasting, the cleansing. There's so many different things, but constantly I kept finding myself into spaces of like, okay, well, what's next? What do I have to do next? What's the next technique? What's the next thing I need to use? And it just constantly brought me in a space of dissatisfaction. And I mean, I'm an extreme person anyway, so it was probably, it was destiny that would brought me into that realm and that journey anyways. But really, keep coming back into that space that you are already where you need to be. And if you sink into that, because most people will say that, but they won't believe it for a minute. So they think they'll say it and then be like, well, nothing in my life is where it needs to be. I should be in a better space. I should be happier. I should have more abundance. But it's because you're not fully in that frequency. You're not fully in that belief. If you're fully in that belief, everything will mesh and form and fashion itself to align exactly how you want it in that moment, right then, right now. So that is a process, of course, and that's the paradox. But the more you're in that belief that you're already where you need to be, not from a new agey perspective, because being in that space will actually force you to do all the things that you need to, but not from what your mind is telling you or the next book or the YouTube video, but for what your heart is telling you. If you don't need to do the cleanse, you don't need to do the cleanse. If your heart isn't pulling you to do that, you don't need to be doing it. But at the same time, if it's telling you you need to go meditate for 6 hours, then you need to go meditate for 6 hours. And it's about figuring out how you're going to more so listen to that versus, sinking into the mind or all these new agey stuff or the courses or all the different techniques that everyone's telling you need to do, rather than actually feeling where you are and where you need to be just from your heart space and your intuition.
Yeah, what you just said there, it reminds me a lot of the teachings of Bodhidharma, and one of the main things he said is that trust that you're already the Buddha. You don't need to seek enlightenment or Buddha nature by constantly going to temples and reading scriptures. It's already within you, intuitively, and a lot of people, I find that they go through the motions and they just wear masks, like they do yoga, but they're not really sinking into their awareness, as you said. They partake in spiritual practices to feel better about being spiritual, but they're not really engaging their mind, body, and spirit into the spiritual practice, if that makes any sense. And
Totally.
It's like you said, it's definitely important to sink into the awareness and ride the wave, as you said. I assume that, I guess this is stuff that you teach as well in your personal development portion of the Ottawa Lifestyle Center. I mean, I've seen some of your videos, where people are listening to you speak, and you touch on a lot of these things. Why would you say it's important to integrate personal development into your lifestyle center? Why did you decide to add that in addition to fitness?
Well, the key thing is obviously that nothing is separate. And so when people look at spirituality as separate than physicality, or they get in this mindset of ascension and feeling they're leaving their physical body or any of that kind of stuff, I mean, really, it's a complete fallacy and a complete illusion. I mean, we're in a multi-dimensional body, of course, and all dimensions need to be cared for, and all dimensions are important. And so, yes, physicality, and for most people are still in that physical realm, and they need to handle themselves on that physical realm. But at the same time, if somebody is being told, you're exactly where you need to be or where you should be, but they're 300 pounds overweight, they're really not going to be able to resonate with that. And so they need to start with that physical element. But at the same time, if you're teaching them meditation first, if you're teaching them mindset first, and you're saying you're exactly where you need to be and this is why, and you show them meditations and you allow them to experience the silence within themselves, or you show them a technique of how to change their thinking patterns or how to reprogram their subconscious, they'll start to buy in that a little bit more at the same time as they're making and taking the actions to lose the weight physically, to change their nutrition, to get their stuff back in balance. Because that's all it really is. I mean, we're looking to get ourselves back into balance, the natural balance. And once you get there, that's actually when life begins. That's where the fun begins. Because the natural human, the human being living on this planet is meant to be in balance. It's meant to be in its natural state. And that's when infinite creativity gets brought forth. So the whole process of the personal growth, health and wellness, and all of this, the whole industry is solely based on how to bring people back into balance. And if it's not in that realm, if it's a business that's not focused on that and focused on just selling products until they die or something like that, well, then we're discounting the fact that we're all here as creators to create. We're all here as entrepreneurs. We're all here as people, as artists, as dancers, as people here to create and build things. And from that, that's where the world becomes such a magical place. But it starts with coming into balance. And so everything we're speaking of at the center is focused on how do we help people come into balance, go through their healing process, how do we educate them and get them into a more expanded viewpoint of their reality, and then ultimately how do we instill an inspiration for creativity and developing that vision for the life. And through those three components, that's what's really going to get someone to that next level.
Well, with bringing people into balance, would you say, from your perspective, I want to ask you, do you think that being brought into balance is like the same as having, in, I guess, quote unquote ego death? Like ego death is in coming out of your comfort zone and expressing yourself more naturally, as opposed to the way that you've been conditioned to expressing yourself. Would you liken that to coming into balance, or would you say that those are two different things? I mean, from my perspective, I guess an ego death, jumping out of your comfort zone, you know, a shift in your reality. My process, and you know, through the experience of other people that I've spoken with, it was kind of it was very shaky and radical, in the sense that my reality was changed, but a lot of internal processes, a lot of internal awakening was going on. Meanwhile, my method of conducting myself in this society had radically changed. And over time, I adjusted and came into balance. But I first had to have a very, I guess, rude awakening. I had to shake myself up first, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
I guess, you know, at your wellness center, obviously, you know, you're bringing people into balance, and I guess in a more smooth transition, in a more gradual way, and in a less disruptive way. But would you say that, you know, from your perspective, from your point of view, would you say that coming into balance is the same as the ego death, or would you say that these things are two different things?
I would say it's kind of the process of both. I would say the ego death, or what also could be called the dark night of the soul, from a one-time perspective. But the ego death really is like that progressive journey, you know. And I'm sure you've experienced this yourself. There's so many ego deaths, you know. It's constantly, you know, removing the Russian doll, the outside layers of the Russian doll, getting into that core, and you go through those main kind of burst points where you're kind of like it's almost like we're born in balance, and then we keep bringing ourselves out of balance, and we're constantly given chances to realize that we should be in balance. We're already in balance. Stop bringing yourself out of balance. But then we push it so far, and that's ultimately why many of us need that dark night of the soul, is to finally like wake the fuck up and say, okay, well, this is the time. Like you pushed it so far.
A breakthrough. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then you know, basically after that initial one, many more usually happen, because we generally don't learn the lesson the first time. And the ones that do, those are the ones that are really moved through this journey in a very efficient means. But the majority of us, including myself, constantly had to learn the same lessons over and over and over, in a very suffering and radical or extreme way. And that process is, I find it's ultimately a never-ending process. Because even at the highest peak, even at the highest level of the skyscraper where you're walking along the balance beam, there's still a little bit of imbalance. You're never going to be perfect. You're never going to be like completely walking across that balance beam with no little jitteriness or no little situation where you almost fell or something of that nature. But it's really just coming into that heart space. It's coming back into that intuitive flow where there's no perfection. So we need to get rid of that. And in that, there's no optimal balance for any, there's no idealistic optimal balance. It's all individual, and it's all based on each individual. And that's really what we're approaching everything with, is how do we take each individual and work with them on a very specific basis, so that we're not trying to create an idealistic picture of what balance is. We're allowing you to figure that out for yourself. We're just giving you the tools and the principles and the laws to follow, because of course there are universal laws and things that we all must, you know, come into alignment with. But as you fit into that, well, then once again, that's where infinite creativity starts to play, and from there, it's all fun.
All right. And what kind of programs are you offering your clients at the wellness center?
So it really ranges. I mean, obviously we're focused up on, on our center up here in Canada. And so a lot of it is, it's at the center, focused on our main classes, or what we call our sessions, where we're creating these very interactive fusion-based sessions, or pathways in a sense, that really combine various modalities. So you could have a class that combines, yoga, fitness, meditation, and martial arts all into one class, specifically designed to bring you through kind of a certain experience. And that's something we're going a lot deeper with in this new year, is to really give people different types of experiences of their own being and their own body through various modalities. And that's the main class, or the group class, or what we call them as like kind of lifestyle parties that are turning into, and they're quite fun. So that's the kind of the main element that we have. But going really deeper, I mean, we're getting into a lot more workshops, mastermind groups, very specific private coaching and one-on-one training, whether that's on our holistic personal training, our nutritional elements, getting into our life coaching, our energetic therapy, nutrition. There's various elements, and that's really why we're going more on a broader worldwide scale, is because a lot of our leaders here are world-class in what they do, and we're really bringing that system online so we can help a much broader audience with that. So that's kind of the next step that we're making. But the whole focus with everything is, how are we guiding people through their journey of transformation, and giving them the tools and the specific, whether products, services, ideas, knowledge, videos, resources that they need at that specific time. And we're just making sure that we constantly refine our process, so we're not overwhelming people. We're not giving things too soon. We're giving it at the perfect time and when they need it. So the journey moves as smoothly as possible.
Okay, and you mentioned about appealing to a broad audience. Now, do you feel that some people, like how do you come across the people who come to your center and they come from a very, I don't know, specific religious background, and maybe, the things that you're teaching don't really resonate with them? Do you feel that only a certain type of clientele come to you, and what you offer kind of quote unquote repels a certain type of audience? Or do you find that people are kind of open-minded and willing to try new things and, like I said earlier, jump out of their comfort zone?
I feel we're in a space now that the majority of the people on the planet are in a space of openness. And the ones that aren't are the ones that ultimately shouldn't be. They're going along their path and their journey, and they're learning the lessons in which they need. And so, yeah, like, we're definitely in a space where we're attracting a certain type of person who we feel is ready, like someone who we feel is ready to make the next step, someone who we feel is ready to really go on that quest. And that doesn't mean we don't have people that are just in their own process, just wanting to come do some classes, just wanting to jump into some sessions here and there. And the key thing is, the team is it has different strengths and different focuses, and that's where we're really focused on the people, and especially our team, in the sense of how are we getting clients that really fit for those specific team members. And that's the key element, is how are we matching up people so that we're not finding someone that's completely not into anything spiritual, just wanting to do some physical training and then coming to have a conversation with me, and that's what we're trying to make sure that we focus on the most, is get people what they need at the right time, and make sure that we're not closing doors to anyone just because one of our team members has a certain viewpoint on something and the member doesn't resonate with that. Because ultimately everyone can be helped. Everyone on the journey can be helped, because anyone who is willing on any level can be provided something. And especially with the holistic services that we have, we generally can make that accommodation. At the same time, there's a lot of people that may not be ready, like I mentioned, and they're just not meant to take that step at this present time. Who knows what will happen in the future? But I mean, and another key thing too is the message that's coming forth, especially from myself. I'm not tainting it. I'm not looking to create opinions out of things. I'm looking to release from my own ego a conversation and make sure that everything that's flowing through me is as close to truth as possible, as close to principle, as close to law as possible. And the more I can communicate in that way, the more difficult it is for anyone to have real resistance to it, because it's things that we're all experiencing day in and day out. And so if things are being experienced on that front, you're experiencing for it yourself, when you hear the message, then the resistance that's going to come up, you're going to know where that resistance is coming from, and that's from within yourself. So that's a key element. And at least for myself as a teacher, it didn't always come through as that, and that's why I definitely did create resistance within people, because it was my own resistance and my own projection coming through. And so that's something that, for any spiritual teacher, anyone on the personal growth path who's communicating, teaching, guiding, they need to be really wary of what they're projecting out as a teacher. What are they projecting from their own ego when they're looking to teach others? And that's something I'm always looking to check myself on.
Yeah, I like the fact that you guys are all running this business very authentically and being very genuine about it. Not in the sense that you're being selective, but you're authentic in the sense that you're attracting the right audience to you, and those who don't want to be a part of it, then they're not a part of it. And those that are drawn to what you're doing, they will come to you, rather than trying to appeal to people who in your heart it's not resonating with them. But some businesses in that position, they'll still try to take their money and whatever. But you're just allowing those, as you said, who are ready to go on that quest, those who are ready to go on that journey, that just let them come to you. And in terms of when you said getting people what they need, I want to ask you, from your experience working with people, what do you think is the biggest thing that is holding people back?
I would say their environment. I would say their environment is number one. Obviously you can go deeper on that and go into all the elements of, their own responsibility, or they're creating the reality, all that kind of thing. But we need to get real. Most people are living in an environment that's filled with toxicity. It's filled with people that are not in that space. So anytime they're having an inclination or a feeling of change, or a feeling of wanting to move forward, or a feeling of all this experience, it's generally their environment that's limiting them from really making that step. And yeah, of course, that is partly their fault and partly their problem, and really it just comes down to fear. But on a more practical sense, we definitely notice it's the environment. And so us creating the community is what we feel is so important. That's like the number one element, especially for people who are on the lower end of the transformational process. Like, they're just starting to get into it, because they can read the blogs, they can watch the YouTube videos, they can do all this stuff online. But and of course, what we're starting to see is that the transference of dimension, in a sense. Like, you can create a full community online and it can feel just as much real as a physical location. But we still feel like that element of the physical nature, that physical center, having that strong community of people that can support you, is just so important. And so that's what we're going harder with. Like, as much as we're focused on helping people through their journey, it's more so building the community. How do we build a community that can support people and create that environment? And then just through osmosis alone, naturally people will go through that change. Naturally the people will make those steps, and it won't be as difficult as it would be if you're trying to blast through fear and blast through comfort zones while you have an entire environment around you that's saying, no, you don't need to do that, So that's definitely a key element.
Cool. And what do you enjoy most about running the Ottawa Lifestyle Center?
I would say, honestly, it actually comes back to that community element. Like, if you would have asked me this, maybe a little while ago, I'd be more focused on, I'd say actually myself and my own journey, because I was so in it. Like, I was so in my own process, and just getting so deep in all the techniques and the things that were going on with me, and the dreams and the changes and the synchronicities, and it's overwhelming. And so you really don't have time to think about that much else other than yourself and what's going on. But, as I really got deeper, I realized, well, the only reason I was able to go through all that was because I had that supportive group. I had that community. I had a foundation. And so recognizing that foundation is the key element, and the key process that I'm involved in at the moment is recognizing how strong community is, how important community is, and realizing that in this next stage as we go through as a collective, that is the most important element. If you have community, you have abundance, you have love, you have resource, you have all that you need. And so for me, it's definitely sinking into that and realizing, the community is number one. And then, all the other fun stuff, like going through the awakening process is epic, building businesses is epic, being creative is epic, helping people every day is epic. But it all comes back to that community for sure.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that, especially being online. a lot, and even moving from a city of 4.5 million to a much smaller city, it's been more aware for me. It's been more present to me that
Mm.
community is important. The way I see people interact with each other here, it's very profound
Mm.
awakening to that realization. Do you think that this style of running a wellness center is going to spread across the world?
Most definitely, man. I mean, I feel it's happening everywhere. I feel a lot of people are tapping into this blueprint, realizing what the new type of community center would look like. I mean, really, we're building here is much more than a fitness center, as you've kind of mentioned, and I mean, it's much more than even just what it is now. The vision is set and the vision is there, and I see it more as a blueprint for people to connect on that deep level of community, building projects, getting into that health and wellness space, connecting with like-minded individuals, like a full place for someone to do that. And like I said, it's a blueprint, so it's happening on various means. You're seeing it in new organizations where new startup businesses are becoming basically like homes. The offices look like a playground. They're becoming incubators. They're doing all these projects. They're way more health conscious than ever before. You're seeing centers and fitness places. The typical box gyms are starting to kind of fall apart. People are still in the physical thing, but you're seeing that dissipation. Yoga centers picking up everywhere, and obviously being that space of community as well, and going really deep on the yoga side. So it's happening everywhere. I definitely feel that ours is on a very unique level, and I feel it's going to be a pioneer in that next step. So we're really excited about that.
In terms of business that you touched on, with regard to startup businesses or even established businesses, what role does business play in the new awakened world?
It's a beautiful thing, and I feel that business is going to transcend in firstly understanding that the customer is the one with the power now. The customer has power. The customer has choice. The customer has knowledge. They can go online at any point, find the best place, find the best thing, find this, that, find the best price, whatever. They have the power. So everything needs to change on that front. So when you see these monopolistic businesses that look at people as cockroaches and look at people as nothing, then, well, they're just going to fall apart unless they change. And most of them are already falling apart. So when you get into business, I mean, at the same time, too, when you get into the community mindset, money as an energy exchange starts to become less and less important. And that's a really interesting component that I feel over the next 10 to 15, 20 years, we really make that next change. And you're seeing this in the Burning Man type gift economy type experience where, naturally, when you do something good for somebody, they're going to want to do something good for you back. So if you're creating a bank, a love bank, and that love bank is based on the energy you're putting out and the energy the community is putting out and the energy the community is exchanging to each other, you're always going to have what you need. You're never going to need any more. You're never going to need money. You're never going to need any of those things. And I feel it's going to take some time before that happens. And I feel there's going to be a lot of new systems that pop up to instill that type of change. But that's a big shift that I see is happening. Is going to be much more on the creative side, much more on the side of movement and betterment for humanity as a first notion, and then profit and all of those things second. But yeah, there's a big shift occurring in business, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's a very important and vital thing. It's not something that can be missed.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that, especially when you said that the customer has power. There's definitely a rise in conscious capitalism, and even, maybe this is a pipe dream and this won't happen for decades, but I would even foresee and anticipate that, as the global consciousness rises, as people become more conscious, even the stock market, I can see people only investing in companies that partake in conscious capitalism, people only investing in companies that don't do XYZ, and then, the market will have to reflect that. Shareholders will now have to be concerned with, having an acceptable level of conscious capitalism in order to get investment into their business. Like, the customer has power, the people have the power to change, the market and influence it. So before we wrap up, I want to revisit this question. What led you on your path to, well, you already told me what led you on your path to self-discovery, but based on who you are now, in comparison to who you were before your awakening, before you opened up the Ottawa Wellness Center, what contrast is there between the person before and after your awakening?
That's night and day. It's almost an opposite nature, I would say. I mean, my whole life I was ridden with every type of obstacle we can know, whether it's my childhood, whether it was my fighting lifestyle, whether that's the physical traumas that I experienced. And, really when you get down to it, you talked about the ego death, and you talk about when you really go through that deep process of transformation, firstly, you start to lose identity, and you lose identity to find that identity, but that identity that you find is not something in which you could have even conceived of, and it's not something in which you could have even imagined, but at the same time, it still holds that true essence in which you always were. And, it was an interesting component I've been thinking about recently, in the idea that, as much as the difficulty I faced in my life, as much of the rage, the anger, the addictions, the bipolar nature, all of the stuff and the shit that I've been through, that many others have as well. Even in those times, even in those situations, there wasn't really a time where I actually wished I was somebody else. There was never a time where I actually wished I was something else or doing something else. All of the thoughts of leaving and running away and thinking grass and greener is on the other side, of course those cross your mind, but the majority of the time, you're still in a space of knowing that there's an inner core that's unique to you, and that core cannot be run away from. And it's like an inner knowing that I feel we all have to a degree that a lot of us forget, but it's always there. And so, even as I've been through this transformation and stepping into this new phase of transmission of all of the things that I've learned and the things that I've been through, it's still that same core. There's still that same core there. And that's, I find, really important. And coming back to that first point we opened with today, is you're already where you need to be. You're already enlightened, and you already have everything that you need. And that, I feel, is the most important component of my process.
Awesome. Last question I want to ask you is, what's next?
Full expansion, my friend. I mean, it's the center itself is really rooted its foundation on here in Ottawa, so we're just running out some big changes over the next little while to really root ourselves here, root ourselves as a powerhouse, and really start to take that next step in leadership within the city, because it definitely needs that. On myself personally, really stepping into the online front and really bringing the online courses, the online teachings. We're setting up a full curriculum, which I call the Infinite Teachings, which are a kind of non-branded, in a sense, form of teachings, which are really just acted as a download for my own process over the past 4 years that I'm really putting together in a curriculum format for people to use as a revolutionary use of spiritual teachings, but for a modern world. And that's going to be extremely important. And then the last component is really our real movement and the real stepping into that full vision on a global scale, which is our Awaken Your Potential campaign, really focused on documenting individual journeys of transformation and releasing this collective vision in which we have, and really with a purpose of connecting with individuals like yourself, with other companies, with other movements, to really take that whole mission on a global front. So yeah, that's the next step for us.
Great. I'm excited to see how this develops. Well,
Yes,
that wraps it up for today's episode of Ascension Lifestyle Podcast. Please visit Corey. You can tweet him at Corey Sheikh. That's COREYSHEIKH. And you could visit him online at umtbc.com. That's the website for the Ottawa Lifestyle Center. All my Canadians out there that are in the Ottawa area, please visit him. And like I said, Corey, we're going to be featuring a lot of Corey's work on our website, ascensionlifestyle.org. And please visit us and tweet us at Ascension Style. It was nice talking to you, Corey.
Likewise, brother. Thank you.
Take care.